Welcome to the Heal with Kelly podcast. I'm Kelly Noonan-Gorse, and every week I speak to the leading doctors, healers, spiritual teachers, and scientists to find out what is truly possible when it comes to healing. I also interview real people with extraordinary healing stories. My philosophy is, what's possible for one is possible for all. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful journey of remembering our divine nature and tapping into the truths that shall set us free. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Today, I am with Lara J. and we are going to talk about the 13 Holy Nights Oracle deck and this incredible ritual I've been doing at the end of the year for the last 2 years that has completely blown my mind and changed my life. Lara is a Neurogenic Qigong practitioner and the author of this beautiful deck. It's soon to be the Sacred Nights, because we're going to talk about that. Lara's mission is to take the over-commercialized winter holidays back from the makers of materialism and to return the soul to the solstice. In addition to her work with seasonal Qigong courses, private clients, and the Holy Nights, Lara also homeschools her musically gifted 16-year-old daughter. We were just talking about this. Mm-hmm. So exciting. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kelly. It's amazing to be here.
Yeah, I remember you reaching out on Instagram and kind of pitching this oracle deck and you know how you're putting the soul back in the solstice, and I was intrigued. I was like, yeah, I'd love to check out the ritual, and my mind was blown. It was so sacred. You walked me through it and talk to me. What is it, and how did you come up with this?
Yeah. So I felt the same way when I learned the ritual. It blew my mind and completely changed my life, totally changed the way that I move through winter and the holidays, which is kind of the obvious, but less obvious, completely changed the way I really move through every second of my life throughout the entire year. And I learned it from my Qigong teacher. It's not a Qigong practice, but I learned it the year my daughter was born. She's 16.
Wow.
And so she's always known the Holy Nights. And it's just profound. It's just a beautiful, profound practice.
So break it down. Break down the ritual.
Okay. So it is, it's essentially, the backdrop is that we are aligning with nature, right? So if you just pay attention to what nature is doing at this time, at the peak of winter, right? The trees have dropped their leaves. The animals are slowing down or perhaps hibernating. You know, plants and grasses have even retreated back into the earth. So there's this feeling of everything kind of drawing energy inward, right? And yet here we are in at least the Northern Hemisphere, shopping compulsively, overindulging in sugar and alcohol, which is taxing the body as opposed to conserving energy, right? Jam-packing our calendars. For most folks, it's the busiest time of the year. Just a slap in the face to the darkness is the LED lawn lights everywhere.
Oh God!
You know, it's really it is our holiday culture is the polar opposite of what is true to the nature of the season, the true energy of the solstice, the winter solstice, and the peak of winter. So that's kind of the backdrop. And then the structure of the practice is really fun. It's 13 days long, so hence the title, the 13 Holy Nights, or soon to be Sacred Nights, as you mentioned. And each day corresponds to a month in the coming year, with the exception of the first day, which is a reflection or a foreshadowing of the entire year to come. So during these 13 days, we're doing two things. One, we're receiving guidance for the coming season, right? The spiritual guidance that we're going to need to move through the challenges and adventures of the coming cycle of seasons, right? And then the second thing we're doing is planting our dream seeds in what I call the fertile soil of the darkness, or the womb of winter. So it's co-creation, right? So let me break down each of those a little bit. So how do you receive guidance, right? What does that even mean for most folks? They're like, what? So that looks like one, drawing oracle cards for each night, each holy night or each sacred night, right? And each oracle card has a message or a theme that then serves to guide you later on in the year, right? And it is, it's laugh out loud, goosebump inducing, just uncanny how the cards, I get so many messages from people, right? Did you experience that?
It's so wild when you pull a card and you're pulling them, that last week between Christmas and New Year's and, or, beyond. And then I get so excited for a new month to churn because I'm like, what card did I pull for February or April or, whatever. Yeah. And what I'm going through at that moment or over this past year, and the card that I had pulled the previous December is like shockingly accurate. And like you said, goosebumps, truth bumps.
Yeah.
And it gives you guidance in that moment too. It's like, oh yes, this is divinely orchestrated for me to look at this aspect of my life, or give me strength in this area of my life, or oh my gosh, I'm in this creative zone, and it's this card related to creativity. It's wild.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's
magical.
It's affirming, right? And it's faith building in the magic, or in that something greater, whatever or whoever that is for you. It's a non-denominational practice. It's not either or. You can add this to whatever your current traditions are. So. But it really does, when you begin to see these synchronicities year after year after year, it really builds your faith in the unseen world of energy and spirit, right? Or source, or God, or the quantum field, whatever you want to name it. And I really love what my teacher, my Qigong teacher, used to say about faith, that it's not a blind trust. You're not just believing something because some authority figure outside of yourself told you, or even a book, or you read it somewhere, but it's a relationship built on experience after experience after experience, right? That turns into faith because you've actually experienced it for yourself, right? Because it's this constant confirmation throughout the year that there's something greater unfolding here.
Totally.
Right?
The magic is undeniable. And then once you see it repeated over and over, and and there's resonance in your body, but also just like the card, and then showing up 8 months later, exactly what was going on in your life. It's hard not to believe.
Right.
In the magic.
So we're drawing oracle cards, and then the other piece is that we're journaling. So it is a 13-day practice in being uber present and super mindful, and you are just paying attention to the world all around you and inside of you, right? But it doesn't have to be, so when I say journaling, it doesn't necessarily have to be really profound, deep thoughts. It's like, this song came on the radio today, I ran into so-and-so at the grocery store, this person called me. You're just journaling everything and being extra present, right? And so it is a 13-day practice in being present. And this is another reason why I just absolutely love how this has changed me and the way I move through my life, because you can do your 10-minute morning meditation, 15-minute, maybe it's an hour, oh wow, maybe a big 2-hour meditation, but this is 13 days, right? It is a 13-day practice. So you really learn how to walk through every moment of your life aware of this constant conversation that we are in with the divine, or this partner dance, right? That's always happening, whether we're tuned in and aware or not, or sleepwalking through it.
Yes.
Right? So, and I will say, like, the first few years that I did this practice, I don't know how it was for you. I'm curious. You'll let me know. But I, towards the end of the practice, I was like exhausted. It was like, oh my God, this is a really long time to pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, is it over yet? Kind of ready to tune out, And, but over the years, it's really strengthened that muscle in me. And now walking through my life in that way is no longer exhausting. It's the norm, and it's pleasurable,
Totally.
Right? So,
yeah, and at that time in where there is less sun in the sky, and for all you people down under, this will come in 6 months from now, but it is a time to turn within, like metaphorically and literally, and so that practice just really makes us in tune with what's coming up for us. It's what we need. I often say, like, all of our health issues, mentally and physically and otherwise and spiritually, are this disconnection we've had from nature and the cycles of nature. And this ritual is a really fun, beautiful, profound way to reconnect with the cycles of nature and the intention of nature and that divine orchestration or divine perfection of the seasons, and this letting go of the old year and the welcoming in the new growth of the new year. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
The coolest part about it is this deck is the most beautiful deck I've ever seen. And your writing to explain the cards is so profound. But talk to us a little bit about, there's 3 categories: herb, mineral, and animal. Why, what roles do those play?
Well, first I just want to say that I 100% agree that
they're so beautiful.
that one of my personal, underlying beliefs is that the more we align with nature, the more we align with our own highest human potential. And the farther away we get from her, the more we, separate ourselves, and the more dysfunctional and sick we become. So
clear, evident in today's society.
100% agree with that. And why animals, herbs, and crystals? Because they are 3 different representations of nature, right? Which is, just as you're saying, this portal into the divine, right? And so and actually, originally I was going to divide the deck up into 4 categories of 13. But truth be told, I just fell in love with writing about the animals, because they really lend themselves to this kind of thing. They're like an archetype, they're like this little slice of the pie of what's possible within the divine. That's a little playful mirroring back to us, or reflection back to us, of all our own quirkiness. And so they were just really delightful to meditate on and to write about.
So cool. Who did the art?
Yeah, so that was a joint project between myself and actually my dear friend Jenny Brennan, who was with me in 2004 when I got bit by a rattlesnake. So really appropriate that we ended up doing this project together all these years later. And and the snake card in there, by the way, the wisdom in there was really hard won, legit wisdom.
Yeah, so, you learned life, like that real lived experience.
Real lived experience, and that meditation in there came to me through that real lived experience.
Wow.
But she's mostly the goddess behind the creativity on the artwork, and we did collaborate quite a bit. So yeah.
I mean, ritual or not, I just think everybody should own this deck because it's so phenomenally beautiful. Like, my daughter loves to pick cards just because they're so aesthetically beautiful, and then the writings that accompany it are so deep and profound and resonant. So do you have any memory? I just love do you have a profound example from your life, like of a card you drew and then boom, like July, it was like, oh my gosh, it could be no other card or something?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that I wrote about in the deck where I drew squirrel from a different deck, right? Because obviously I learned this practice before I created this oracle deck. So I was using other oracle decks. But I drew a squirrel card from a different deck, and it was all about like, maybe you need to lighten your load, and you've accumulated too many things. And then later on in that year, in July, which I didn't know during the Holy Nights that this was going to happen, we ended up selling our house, putting our house on the market, selling our house, and moving into a travel trailer.
Wow.
So, that's hysterical. The year of the pandemic, so it would have been 2019, so before it really descended, right? I drew Dragonfly from my own deck, which is all about the walls of illusion falling down all around you.
Wow.
And that was profound. It was like, that tracks,
Yes.
And
for some.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, endless, right? Every time I turn the page, just like, okay.
I just remember the first year I did it, so 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I want to be a songwriter. I mean, just on like the side, not as a career.
Yeah.
But I've always written poetry, and I love music, and I want to just, so I got like a songwriting book, and I was like, okay, in January, I'm going to write at least one song. Like, that's going to be my mission. I'm just going to start the songwriting journal. And the first card I pulled for January was Whale, which is all about song and communication and depth of your soul. And I was just like, what?
Healing with sound.
Healing with sound. It was so, I mean, it seems kind of trivial, but at the time it was like, I mean, of course there could be no other card.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I love so many people send me multiple times. I've had people write in and say, okay, I was getting ready to draw my card and this card just fell out of the deck and it was such and such card. And then I thought, oh no, that's not good. And I put it back in, like it fell out. They weren't drawing the card consciously. And then they'd shuffle the cards and they go through their process and they draw a card and lo and behold, it's the card that fell out of the deck. And I feel like that kind of magic happens in so many different ways with this practice specifically.
Yeah.
Because we're opening ourselves up to it, we're inviting it in, and it really is it is a legitimately magical window of time. I mean, I can feel it when that sundown falls on the first holy night.
Which is Christmas Eve, correct?
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Okay,
so
so
we
the
didn't quite finish the nuts and bolts of the practice, so we have to come back to it.
Let's do it.
But I can feel it in the air. It's like the atoms stopped spinning or something. It's this it's like a cosmic pause, and we're in this just beautiful stillness that is so potent. And it's the womb of winter. It's this field of infinite possibility, right? It's the radiant darkness, the 0 point of the year, and it's just beautiful. So, and then likewise, when the window closes on January 6th at sundown, if when I sit down to meditate on January 7th in the morning, I'm kind of like, oh, it's a little bit harder. My mind's a little bit noisier.
Oh yeah, there's like a shift.
There's a shift. You can really, it's palpable. You can feel it. But so the practice begins on the 21st, technically, which is the solstice. Right. And about this being, not to get sidetracked again, but being a legitimate window, as far back as we can peer into human history, humans have been celebrating, witnessing, honoring the solstice. So there are ruins of solstice sites on every single continent, including the United States, which a lot of people don't know, but Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, there's Arcaim in Russia, there's Nabta Playa in Egypt, there's Newgrange and Stonehenge, which is what most people think of, but there are these ruins of solstice sites, sacred sites that were clearly designed with care and unbelievable precision to capture the first rays of the sunlight on the solstice, right? And often the equinoxes too, but they were tuned in to this cosmic rhythm, right?
Like a portal.
Yeah, and so it's legitimate. It's legitimate magic. But so it starts on the solstice, which is the longest, darkest night of the year, right? The shortest day of sunlight on the 21st, and we have 3 initial days to prepare. And this is so appropriate because solstice literally means sun stands still. So sol-sistere. Right? So sol is sun and sistere means to stand still. And the sun appears not to move on the horizon for 3 days after the solstice. So for 3 days, we have time to just sort of prepare for our practice, prepare for this blueprint that we're going to co-create when those first rays of light start streaming back in, right? Which is on the 24th. So you have 3 days to prepare. Well, what does that look like? If you want to meditate more in the coming cycle of seasons for the new year, rather than just writing it down on a list of New Year's resolutions, you're going to actually do that.
Like an imprint.
An imprint, a real physical, energetic imprint. And I don't mean that as an oxymoron because energy is real, right? And to me, everything that's physical is energy.
Yeah.
So it's like not contradictory, but or not a contradiction. But you're creating a real energetic impulse, right? Like a stamp. And so if you want to have a certain person in your life, make sure you reach out to them in some way, whether it's just a phone call or you actually get together. But reach out to that person to ensure that they're going to be in your next cycle, right? So whatever it is, if you want to garden more, if you live in a place where you don't live in California and you can't actually garden during that window of time, maybe you're sifting through seed catalogs and just tipping your hat in some way to that which you're wanting to bring in to the new cycle.
Or if you're wanting to eat better or exercise more, it's a good 3 days to
absolutely.
plant those seeds.
Right. So during the 3 days, you're sort of just getting ready. You're like, okay, well, do I need to get a seed catalog? Do I need to get a meditation cushion? Do I need to get some recipes? Do I have that person's phone number? Right. And then the first, what I call holy night or sacred night, actually falls at this is the only tricky part. It falls at sundown on December 24th and carries through until sundown on December 25th. So sundown to sundown, that 24-hour period is the first holy/sacred night, right? And so that first 24-hour period is a foreshadowing of the entire year to come. You're drawing 3 oracle cards, 1 animal card, 1 herb card, 1 crystal card, and then again, don't forget you're journaling everything, right? So that's the receive bit. And then the planting your dream seeds is the actual action of doing the things and bringing the things in that you're wanting for the new year. So from there forward, sundown on the 25th to sundown on the 26th is January. Sundown on the 26th to sundown on the 27th, February. And so
at that point, you just draw 1 card moving forward.
Yeah.
Put the whole deck together, so it could be a crystal, it could be an animal, it could be an herb. And you could draw the same card for 3 days in a row. It could be the same card for January,
all the time.
February, March.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just means that there's some theme that's up in your life, which we've all experienced seasons, right? Where we're working on something for more than just 31 days.
Right.
So, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes on and on and on, and so journaling. So I'm just going to dig into, I remember I'm looking at my list. So for January, I didn't write down what I wrote for the whole year, so I'm just writing this now, but let's see. So for November, for December, I drew snake.
Oh, good.
And for January, I drew jaguar. And I remember a jaguar was my animal for the entire year. And then I drew it again for January.
So has it been a powerful year for you?
I mean, if power means you getting knocked out by Mike Tyson in the face,
okay,
yes,
but did you read Jaguar?
Let me read it. I'm going to read it right now.
It's exactly that.
Oh
it talks about how the sheer force of jaguar can knock the wind out of you. So be careful with this one.
Yes.
Right? Because it's a lot of energy, just raw, powerful energy coming at you. And it's up to you to direct that.
Okay. Well, I've done my best.
Yeah.
Woo! It's been intense. So this is the animal for the year and January. Raw powers, and then I think I pulled it in August again.
Wow.
So Jaguar, raw power, center, stalking goals, respect, and mindfulness. Jaguar is the embodiment of raw power and exquisite grace. Astonishingly agile and intensely powerful, she climbs, swims, prowls, hides, hunts, stalks, and attacks with breathtaking lightness and ease. If Jaguar has leapt into your holy nights, be prepared for a surge of wild and magnificent power to flow through you and your life. Woo! Jaguar symbolizes the ability to channel raw, untamed power straight from the inexhaustible source of the divine abyss. In order for this surge of energy to move through in a constructive way, you must hold steady in center and breathe deeply, for the sheer force of Jaguar's power can knock the wind right out of you. Yes, it can. Staying in center means finding that quiet, still point inside that opens the door to your own inner connection with spirit. Center is the inner portal that carries us through the void straight to the shore of the divine. This difficult skill, holding center while falling through the abyss of life, yes, is an essential tool on the journey of consciously awakening one's soul. When Jaguar is afoot, it may feel like you are plummeting through the abyss rather than gently falling like an autumn leaf. Hence the need to tune up your centering skills. Also, yes. There are as many ways to find center as there are individual souls. If you already have a well-worn path, by all means, continue your personal practice. If, however, you have not yet developed a centering practice, you can simply start with the breath. With each inhale, bring your attention to the present moment. And with each exhale, let go of all the thoughts and stories from your life. Now let your attention shift to your heart center, which has been all my work in the last few months from all different healers and teachers. It's out of your head and into your heart, and it has shifted everything. Found my centering practice.
Yeah, goosebumps.
Took me about 8 months. Take your breath right into the center of your chest. Let your breath flow into your chest and your shoulders like warm mead filling a leather flask, melting away any tension and stiffness. With each exhale, find yourself spiraling inwards and backwards into the center of your chest until you come to a place of rest within the arms of the divine. As if leaning back into a hammock, trust, relax, release, and let go as you allow the arms of spirit to hold you there, between awake and asleep, between your inner world and your outer world, between your past and your future. Only from this place of deep centeredness can we channel the majestic, savage power of Jaguar. Wow, chills. Jaguar's fierce power is not to be taken lightly. She will often take advantage of blind spots to ambush her prey from behind, her teeth piercing straight through the skull with one fatal bite. There's a couple people out there I might try this on. No, I'm kidding. She can also decapitate her prey with a single swipe of her paw. With impressive strength and skill, she can hoist deer, tapirs, and even cows up into a tree, where she can enjoy her meals undisturbed by other animals. If Jaguar has prowled into your holy nights, know that you are strong, skilled, and well-deserving of her power, but you must act with extreme care and mindfulness. With the power of Jaguar pulsing through you, it's all too easy to harm others without intending to do so. You are well equipped to hunt down that which you have been pursuing in your life, but do not chase after your goals without stalking them quietly first. You may be surprised by your ability to stalk and attain your goals. Trust in yourself, in your skills, and in your power. You are being given a great and exhilarating gift. Treat it with care. Woo! Sorry that was long, but that's just an example of like the depth of each card in each month or each, for the year, that this feedback you're getting from this ritual.
There are a lot of decks out there, right, where there's just a paragraph or even a sentence that goes along with each card. And because of the nature of this practice, that it's really guiding you through the year, I really wanted to give people something to sink their teeth into, you know. And so they're longer explanations, longer bits that go along with each card.
But they're perfect. They're very potent.
Yeah. And I also, for everybody who's learning about this practice for the first time, you want to keep your journal with you nearby. Well, during the practice, of course, I just take it with me everywhere I go. Yeah. And my Holy Nights journal, Sacred Nights journal, is not particularly organized or beautiful. It's like there's little things written in the margins and little, doodles, and it's just an organic thing that you're sort of writing everything down as you're going through that window. But Beyond Words is actually producing a journal as well, which I had developed, but I didn't have the ability to. After producing this, I wasn't ready to jump in and
because you've been slinging these decks out of the car for the past 16 years, or however long you've been telling. And they sell out, and it's amazing. But you've been like going to the post office wherever you are in the country, and
the guys at the
off.
Post office are like my best friends at this point. We're tight. So it's going to be a little sad when the publishers take over next year. I'm just going to have to go find some people to send letters to or something, make excuses. But then after the Holy Nights are over, now you have this incredible journal that you created hand in hand with your team, right? Just this intimate thing that you created that is, I swear, better than any astrology reading, or it's like having your own crystal ball, the most insightful best friend you ever had, like the greatest therapist you ever had, just wrapped up into this journal. And so remember to refer back to it.
Yes.
Some people do the practice and then they forget about the journal. Yeah. And the whole reason that we've done this practice is to gather this rich guidance that is our sustenance, right, throughout the year. So remember to keep it by your bedside or just somewhere where you're going to see it all the time, and remember to refer back to it. When I'm moving through my life, the first thing I do when, life gets crazy is, okay, what did I write in my journal for this month? And there's always something in there that just serves to shift my perspective slightly, or, you know, help me move through that challenge with a little more grace or a little more understanding, or at least just feeling like I'm not alone. And yeah, this was kind of, this was somehow in the design.
Divinely designed,
right?
Yeah.
So once you've done the practice, this is the gold, right?
Yeah.
And so keep it close and remember to refer back.
Yeah, because like you said, this is like a creative wound. And it's so funny because in traditional, you know, Christianity, Jesus was born right on Christmas Eve, correct? Or Christmas Day?
I think it was like midnight of
the
25th, yeah.
But I've heard that his actual birthday is like sometime in March. So, but it just makes sense, like, as far as like, you know, tradition wise, to line it up with the solstice and 3 days after this, like where the sun doesn't move, and it's this preparation period. There's probably some sort of fasting or something going on, and then inviting in this like extremely potent, creative, dark period of nature before the end of the year. You invite in this divine guidance and Christ consciousness, really, into creating and bringing more light into the next year, into life.
Yeah. So it's interesting talking about the birth date of Jesus, because I've fell in love with this practice myself, right? Practicing it all these years, telling all my girlfriends about it, and they're going, "Can we have a little more guidance?" And then that snowballed, and here we are, right? But the Beyond Words asked me to write a history chapter. And I realized, oh, wow, I've been practicing for 16 years, but I don't really know where this practice came from, right? I just learned it from my teacher, fell in love with it, took it in, made it my own, you know? And so I ended up diving into all this research this year on the winter solstice, you know, paganism. I bought like a stack of books, you know, as high as I am, on the history of Christmas, this whole season. And it was fascinating. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot because I was like, oh, I want to get this right, you know? And so the birth date of Christ was, even Christianity acknowledges this, that they're celebrating his birth on that day at that time, but nobody really knows when Christ was born, mm-hmm. right? And so I ended up learning about all of these, quote, one book described them as wonder children that have appeared throughout history over and over and over again, often male, the child born of a virgin in a cave, which later became the manger, right? And there's just an endless list of details that correlate from these wonder children from other cultures all over the world that are very similar to our story of Jesus. And
wow.
It's wild. And I really had to marinate a lot on what that meant, and I'm still not really sure. I mean, if anything, like as soon as you start digging into any topic, you typically find that you discover more and more of what you don't know, right? But so the birth date of Christ really came from Constantine the Great.
Okay.
And he worshipped a god, Mithras. And the birth date of Mithras was December 25th, and he was one of these wonder children. They're often solar gods, solar deities, right? And so it would make sense that they celebrate the birth of these solar deities who come to the earth to, in some way, shape, or form, redeem humanity on the solstice, when the light is coming back in. And so these are cultures that for ages have witnessed the rebirth of the light, not only externally on the horizon, but also internally within the psyche of humanity and within, our human story unfolding. So, and I do want to say that for me, this didn't negate anybody's belief in Christ, or, because you could look at it as, I believe the nature of the universe is fractal, right? Mm-hmm. And so what is a fractal? It's like we have spirals, right? That what's the nature of a spiral? It passes by the same place over and over again, but in a slightly different position. So maybe a little bit higher or a little bit lower or wider or tighter, right? And so maybe this happening of a divine being of light, you know, coming through in human form to in some way, shape, or form redeem or up-level humanity or bring the divine light through is a core piece of the unfolding of humanity. And I don't know if I described that very well. It's hard to...
I'm tracking. I totally agree with you.
It's hard to put into words, but so I uncovered a lot, and that's not all in the, you know, these are like side rabbit holes that I went down when I was trying to figure out where the Holy Nights came from. But yeah, cultures for eons we've celebrated this winter solstice season. And again, these ancient cultures, it wasn't just Christmas wasn't one day, even, you know, back long ago. It was a season, right? And what I just read in one of my books recently, it said if you just celebrate Christmas on the actual Christmas day and then go back to like regular life, you're going to have like a really bad hangover or something. I forget how he worded it, but it was really funny the way he said it. But it is there's this window of time that's a time to pause. It's a time to become introspective, and it's a time for that. Again, we're witnessing the rebirth of the light on the horizon, and then we're also witnessing the rebirth of our own divine creative spark internally, right? Or the Christ consciousness, or, you know, again.
Just such a good reminder, too, that like we're meant, just like the bears foraging for pounds and pounds of food so they can go and hibernate and conserve energy and like dig deep so that their body does all it needs to do. You know, we're supposed to be, as humans in this time and season, conserving energy and resources to last the winter and the darkness and the cold and have more, you know, heat and survive, really. But also, you know, what we're doing, like you said at the beginning, is just completely opposite. We're burning the candle at both ends. We're stressing. Our stress levels that are already, our baseline is like way higher than it should be, which is why a lot of people are sick. And then you just pour gasoline on this consumer crazed season, and it's killing people. So that's why I just love this too. It's like, it doesn't take me out of Christmas, but I'm just more thoughtful about it and more precious and sacred about the intention of the season. And I think even just a little bit, you know, a 20% shift in everybody will change the trajectory of society. you know?
Yeah. And we have this endless summer approach to life, right? Where and this is our commercialism and the consumerism and our, you know, it's this constant, it's always produce, always be busy, always push. And if we look at nature all around us, we've got high tide, low tide, you've got sunrise, sunset, you've got winter solstice, summer solstice, there's this pulse.
Full moon, new moon.
Right. There's this pulse, there's this rhythm.
Contraction, expansion, contraction.
Yes, and we're immersed in it. And we're pretending that we're not. That's, you know.
We're fighting it, which is why we're also so burnt out and exhausted. We're fighting the energy of the seasons and the cycles.
Yeah. It's like swimming upstream, right? So, yeah. The other piece of the history that was fascinating to me was learning about where our current Christmas traditions of Santa Claus and the Christmas tree and the gift giving actually came from. And again,
did they cover Elf on the Shelf?
They did not cover Elf on the Shelf, but it was a huge surprise to me. And this is not, again, this is the history chapter is a bit more brief in the new edition, but so I don't dive into all of this. So this is extra for everybody who's
bonus
listening.
Content.
This is bonus content. But so in the early days of the colonies, what was called, quote, Christmas looked nothing at all like what we celebrate as Christmas today. And it was actually more reminiscent of Saturnalian practices from ancient Rome. And so if you've ever heard of Saturnalia, it was more of a period of complete and total societal upheaval and misrule. It was more of a carnival. So there was...
hedonistic.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was, so they had just gone through the harvest season, so there was all this freshly fermented alcohol. It was slaughter time because it was finally cold enough to slaughter the meat, right? So there was excessive eating and drinking, so gorging and debauchery, right? there was this theme of social inversion and role reversal. So there were slaves being served by slave owners, and children bossing their parents around, and cross-dressing, and promiscuity in the streets.
What?
And like it was an anything goes. It was this total crazy
Saturnalia.
Yeah.
Turned Burning Man.
Absolutely. So these were the tradition. This was more reminiscent of what was happening in the colonies, and they called it Christmas. They called it Christmas, right? And so this is happening alongside the Puritans, and they are not having it. They are not having it. They didn't want to celebrate the birth date of Jesus on the 25th because they knew that was, kind of an adaptation from, or something that was brought in from earlier paganism, and so they're refusing, and they even succeeded in outlawing Christmas in the 1600s for like a 20+ year period of time. So Christmas was illegal. It was illegal to celebrate Christmas. But
Christmas in the version of this
Christmas in the version of
party town.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the interesting thing about the Saturnalian traditions is that the whole society was in on it. So everybody agreed to participate. And the upper class were kind of like, well, we'll play this little game. We'll play along. It'll be a good time. And we'll kind of let our slaves let the steam out of their kettle, so to speak, for this, 2-week period of time. And then we'll all go back to normal, and that will ensure that we get good service throughout the rest of the year, right? And you can see some of that left over in our current tradition of tipping the hired help for the holidays, right? So you want to make sure that you get, that they're happy and they stay with you for another year, right? So everybody's in on it, and everyone participated, all the different levels of society. But then you move it over to the colonies, the Puritans are having a fit, and the upper class decides that they don't really want to participate anymore. So you can imagine a group of rowdy, probably drunken young people showing up to a fancy manor, and singing their satirical songs, which they called wassailing. Here we go, a wassailing. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Yeah. Or they would put masks on and do these really rude and crude, again, satirical plays.
Comedy shows.
Yeah, and they would demand fairly aggressively to be paid or given food and drink. And, and again, where this was coming from in the old world, that it was agreed upon, and everybody participated. And so then they're getting doors, locked, and no, you're not coming in. And so all of a sudden you can imagine how quickly that would turn really sour.
Yeah.
And it turned into a time of violence and vandalism, and it was just spiraling out of hand. And this is where it gets fascinating. There was a very small group of intellectual upper class. I think it started with one man who kind of had this inspiration, and then there was a little small group of them, and they basically rebranded Christmas. Like, they literally cherry-picked traditions from the old world. So they were pagan traditions, because people have all, doesn't our Christmas stuff come from pagan, the Christmas tree? And yeah, it's true, they were pagan traditions, but it didn't just organically trickle down from the old world. And there was this Dutch Saint Nick, and he just kind of gradually made his way over here from probably some Dutch settlers. Not the case. They were English, and they cherry-picked.
They crafted
very intentionally. They came up with this new deity. They said the house of Ale will not be vanquished by the house of God. So we're going to come up with a new deity. And they made this very, this fat, jolly, very relatable giant elf, and think about it. He does enter that. He breaks and enters the house, but he leaves a gift. He doesn't demand gifts, right? And maybe the cookies are that leftover exchange a little bit, right? But and then they wanted to keep some of the role reversal, right? So okay, we'll do gift giving to children, because you have to remember that at that time children weren't really seen as equals. They were kind of almost like a separate class. So we're gonna give gifts to the children. So that will sort of satisfy this this role reversal thing. You know, it's like they wanted to satisfy the desire of the masses to stay rooted in their old world traditions, while creating something that was confined, maintaining the peace, confined within the walls of the house. In fact, within the parlor, that's where the Christmas tree came from. There was like one obscure mention of a Christmas tree in Germany somewhere, and one of the women in this group found it and decided that would be a good thing to include, you know. And so so they literally like rebranded Christmas in order to discourage this less desirable behavior and encourage, you know.
Is that crazy?
It's crazy. And that's why we have what we have today. And then of course they got the shopkeepers on board, and they realized that was a smart alliance. And then I think over the years that spun out of control, and here we are.
Then Black Friday, we're back to mayhem and violence now.
Yeah, it came full circle. But I laugh because the name of the book that I got most of that history from was called The Battle for Christmas by Stephen or Stefan Nissenbaum. I'm not quite sure. He's a historian.
Okay.
Right. And I laugh because I go, okay, well, the battle for Christmas is not over.
Yeah.
And I'm rebranding again, and I'm taking it back, you know, beyond and before Saturnalia to these ancient pagan traditions that were in alignment with nature.
Yeah.
And that were tuned in to the rhythm of the cosmos and the seasons and this potent darkness, right? And the rebirth of the light within that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really peaceful and nourishing to the soul.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Neurogenic Qigong, because
switching gears.
You moonlight as a healer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't had a session yet, but I'm going to. Tell the audience.
We will do that.
What you do for your day job.
So my work is a combination of Medical Qigong or Qigong healing, and which I've been doing for 16 years. And then I combine that with tension and trauma releasing exercises. So I went and studied with the TRE organization. And if you think of, tension and trauma releasing exercises leads to a neurogenic tremor in the body. And if you think of the way that an animal shakes when it's scared or overwhelmed, right? Think of a gazelle getting chased by a lion. When it finally recognizes that it's absolutely safe, it's not going to be lunch or dinner or breakfast, right? It will shake and tremor in an involuntary way, and then go back to the herd and graze as if nothing had happened, healthy, functional gazelle, right? So we humans are conditioned socially to shut that down. Hold it in, think about it. If you started shaking here, we'd probably all in the room be like, oh, Kelly, what's wrong? Do you need, a shot of whiskey? Do you need an Ativan? What do you need? Like, just make it stop. That's weird. So this is something wrong, not something right.
Okay.
Right? And
yes.
so it's just socially not accepted. And that's something we've inherited. And yet it is extremely beneficial. So what's actually happening is the nervous system is releasing the acquired tension or the trapped tension from the overstimulating event. So again, I studied with this organization. They're called TRE, and they call what they do TRE. And I get a client into that state. It's surprisingly easy. I've never had a client that hasn't been able to tremor. If you have a healthy nervous system, your body knows how to do this. And it's a completely, just body-led practice. This isn't choreography. This isn't weird hippie stuff where you're going like, my shoulder aches, so I'm going to do these, loopy movements or whatever. It's not coming from the conscious mind. This is unconscious, involuntary twitch of the muscle, really. And so I guide the client into that state, and then once they're comfortable, then I interweave the meridian work and the Chinese medicine, and we work in that way. And it's really profound. Energy really moves, and people have really big experiences that are quite transformative.
And is it like once it's released, it's gone, or for deeper trauma, you got to do like 3 sessions, or every time it's just a different layer? But once you shake something out, it's gone.
I mean, I would say that depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes you shake something out and it's gone and it's released. And it's interesting because, a lot of times you'll see these big waves of tremor move through the body. So it sort of comes in waves, and or a part of the body will, the arm will start flapping around like a fish out of water, and then often there will be a memory that bubbles to the surface, simultaneously. And a lot of times it's stuff that people, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember that happened. Oof. Or I had no access to that memory sometimes. So it's profound. It can be used as a maintenance practice also. My goal is to, have 3 sessions with a client, and then they're good. They can do it.
Induce their own
they
state.
Can do it on their own.
Yeah.
They can, take it as another tool in their tool belt of the things that help us through this crazy life.
Yes.
And then and then they'll contact me if something big's up or they're feeling off or.
Ooh, I can't wait to experience it.
Yeah.
If I was more brave, we would do it right now, but we're running out of time. So maybe I'll have you back and we'll film the whole thing and show the world someone shaking it out.
Yeah.
So where can people get this awesome deck, the 13 Holy Nights Oracle deck? Next year, it'll be the Sacred Nights.
Yep.
But I would say get it ASAP so that it arrives before the 21st of December. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is, there are 2 URLs right now that go to the same place, and it's larajday.com. Do not sneak a U in there. L-A-R-A, I know we're creatures of habit. L-A-R-A-J, Jean is my middle name, so larajday, D-A-Y.com. And then you can also get their 13 Holy Nights Oracle.com, but that'll be going away next year. So 13 Holy Nights Oracle.com.
All right, guys, join us in this ritual. It's going to be amazing. It's going to blow your mind. And maybe we'll do something on Instagram and guide people through it. But so get your deck and join us. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.